Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a philosophy that takes everything you thought you knew about forgiveness and flips it completely on its head. We're all taught that forgiveness is this essential part of healing, right? But what if that's just not true? The source material we're looking at today makes a pretty bold claim. Maybe, just maybe, we're not meant to forgive anyone, ever. Okay, so here's the absolute heart of it. The idea is that forgiveness isn't just hard. It's literally impossible for us as humans. It's an illusion. Now, I know that sounds pretty extreme, so what's the thinking behind a claim like that? How do they even get there?
Well, to really get a grip on this, we need to look at the one foundational idea this entire philosophy is built on. It's this core principle that basically rewrites the rules of cause and effect as we think we know them.
So this philosophy calls it the great law of nature. And the idea is pretty simple, but huge. Nothing happens by chance at all. We think we're making our own choices, but we're not. We're actually all just actors in a giant play. And this universal law, it's already written the script for every single one of us. And here's the kicker. If the person who wronged you was just an actor reading their lines, well, then they aren't really responsible for what they did. And if that's true, it means you, another actor in the same play, have zero authority to forgive them. In this worldview, forgiveness isn't our job. It belongs to the director of the whole show, nature itself. Okay, now to really see how far this idea goes, the source gives us an example, and I've got to warn you, it's a really tough one. It's specifically designed to push back on everything we think we know about justice and pain. So what this philosophy is asking us to do it feels almost impossible. It's asking us to separate our raw feelings, that anger, that pain, from the event's real purpose. It argues that in the grand scheme of the great law, the other person was just an instrument, a tool. Now, this doesn't mean society just lets them off the hook, of course not. But it does mean that your personal forgiveness, it's just the wrong tool for the job if you want to understand what really happened. And this leads us directly to the most challenging, and let's be honest, the most controversial part of this whole idea. Because if the person who caused all this pain is just a supporting character, then who's the main character? Who is this lesson really for? And here comes the twist. The source material just completely flips our normal understanding of victimhood on its head. It takes the spotlight off the person who did the wrong thing and shines it directly, and I mean squarely, on the person who's suffering. Yeah, just think about that for a second. In this way of looking at things, your own pain is a direct message from nature. It's not some random awful thing that happened. It's a curriculum. The suffering itself is a big, flashing sign that there's something incredibly important you need to learn about yourself. This brings us to what the source calls the 70-30 rule. And let's be super clear here. This has nothing to do with blame. It's about responsibility for learning. It says the person who's suffering holds 70% of the responsibility for figuring out the lesson that's hidden inside the pain. The other person, they're just the 30%. They're part of the delivery system for your lesson. And this quote really nails that idea. The way to heal isn't about letting someone else off the hook. It's about looking inside and finding what this philosophy calls your fault. And again, fault here doesn't mean blame. It means a misunderstanding, a blind spot you have. Something in you that this whole painful event was designed to show you. Okay, so what happens if you don't do that? What if you just ignore all this, reject the idea, and stick to blaming the other person? Well, the source is very, very clear about the consequences of not learning your lesson. This is a really core belief of this philosophy. Nature, or the great law, whatever you want to call it, it wants you to learn. So if you miss the memo the first time, it's going to send it again, only louder. The same kind of suffering will happen again, and it'll probably get worse and worse until you have no choice but to finally face the lesson you've been avoiding. And according to the source, this is why you see those weird patterns in people's lives. The person who's always getting into car accidents, or the one who keeps getting scammed, or ends up in trouble with the law over and over. This philosophy says those aren't just bad luck or coincidence. Nope, they're unlearned lessons stuck on a repeating loop. So let's just put these two paths side by side. The normal way, conventional forgiveness, it's all about focusing on the other person so you can release your anger. But with this philosophy, the focus is 100% on yourself so you can learn a lesson.
The goal isn't just a temporary emotional peace. It's about fundamentally breaking a bad pattern in your life for good.
Ultimately, what this philosophy does is redefine these huge, powerful words. Forgiveness and revenge stop being actions you take, and they become concepts for understanding what's going on. I mean, think about it. Going after revenge is just signing yourself up for another painful lesson down the road, right? The real goal, the only goal, is always the same. Use whatever hardship comes your way to figure yourself out and finally break the cycle. And so, we want to leave you with the one question that sits right at the very heart of this whole philosophy. It's a tough one, maybe even an uncomfortable one, but it's also a really powerful idea. If all your hardships are actually lessons, what is life trying to teach you?